Hey, YouTube. Patch 110 dropped, and it's absolutely insane. It overhauled the game. It changed the poise system so very dramatically. Some are even calling it Dark Souls 3 because it seemed like the poise system completely vanished and was replaced with hyper armor during certain weapons attacks, which is partially true. What really happened is that they increased the poise damage of the first attack on many weapons, and then subsequent attacks have lower poise, thus causing an effect where it feels like for that first hit you don't have any poise at all, and hyper armor is what matters. So here's the build. I've been showing it on screen the whole darn time. First we have the Frosty Halberd 718 AR, then we have the pure heavy halberd. It's got that 721 AR, and then when we give it the buff, we get that tasty 864 AR. Does it matter a whole lot? No, it's still split damage, don't worry, but it's fun, and we're gonna see on screen how we do in the invasions, which is exciting. This is an all-rounder build. It's not specified, it's not specialized, I should say, at anything in particular. It's just a strength build with a little bit of int, so you can use some fancy weapons, and we were mostly trying out new Ashes of War. Now, Radahn's Reign didn't change all that much, but I felt like it'd be a fun little snippet to start with. But, oh boy, did they change so very much. Because so many new things stumble enemies or other players, stagger them on the first hit, there is a new array of options you can utilize. And since Hyper Armor is back, there's even more options available to you. It's going to change how you play. You're not going to be counting poise numbers as often to see if you can face tank a katana to make a good trade. In fact, the game is probably going to punish you for poor spacing, and it's going to punish you for button mashing in people's faces because your subsequent attacks are going to have lower poise. And I'm all for it. It feels like coming home to Dark Souls 3, which makes me feel very bad for not having played more Dark Souls 3. Recently, I should say, I played a good amount of Dark Souls 3 during its lifetime. Oh, watch this damage. Oh my goodness, that was, what was that, 1300, 1500 damage? Doesn't matter. It made the health bar get real small, and it scared them off, which is the important thing. Finding Barbaric Roar, it combos now. If you can get in that first hit and it connects and they're not during hyper armor, if they're in neutral or something, it'll probably hit the other two hits as well, and that is phenomenal. It's so much fun. It's exciting. I've never been one to use Barbaric Roar because oftentimes you'll hit people the first bit and they'll just leave, or it was that way pre-patch 110. But patch 110 has changed the way we understand the video game. See that Shamshir? That Shamshir just one-handed stunned me. That's nonsense. And of course there's spreadsheets online and you can get the numbers there, but I just wanted a general feel. And it was a little daunting at first because I couldn't play it as soon as the patch arrived. It actually took a day and a half or so before I could actually test out the patch. And so I was watching the online hubbub about it. And it was making me a little scared. I was like, oh no, I haven't played Dark Souls 3 in ages. It felt like months, maybe a year or two. And maybe it's just about a year now that I think about it. And I'm probably going to be very bad at all of this. And I am. I am so bad. I've learned bad things from Elden Ring that are not benefiting me anymore. And to be fair, I'm not the only one making those mistakes. I find myself fighting people who are making the same mistakes I am. And so we're all back at ground zero. It feels like the game has just released again somehow 1 month before Armored Core 6 comes out. And we're all here, and we're all learning, and it's just a wild, new, flavorful experience. Visually and the framework, it should all be the same. We should understand it, but the game feel is so different. There's a newness to it. It's, honestly, it almost feels better than if they had released a DLC, and that's hard for me to say because I don't think I've been in the FromSoft Soulsborne community when a DLC has released, so maybe I don't understand the excitement behind it. But I feel like new weapons and a few new armors and a few new spells and incantations will not be nearly as exciting as the whole game flipping upside down on its head. It is a momentous gift that Miyazaki's given us. Look at this Storm Assault. Ooh, clean that up. Oh goodness, it's Storm Stomp with a free hit. It's kind of disgusting. Oh, but I couldn't be happier about it. And so now people are experimenting with all sorts of things. People are using straight swords in their main hand with off stock in the offhand. And people are two-handing a straight sword and using crouch pokes. People are doing all sorts of wacky things. Here's an interaction where I was just kind of had tunnel vision, and I just really wanted to hit somebody with a barbaric roar because I had seen how much damage it could do. And you could probably optimize this easily. You could probably do a poison build or something like that. Or a bleed build, rather. You should probably do a bleed build instead and do wonderful big damage because you get so many hits. Heck, you'd probably be better off going with just pure strength at that point. And the wizard, I don't know what he wants, but I think the host wanted to fight me one-on-one, which was nice of them because I was being a doofus in this moment. But even if I'm a doofus and I'm not very good at the game, look at that damage, 825 across 2 hits. And it looks like the first hit held him. I don't know if it's because he wanted to trade or something or what. I don't know if the Warped Axe just has fantastic poise damage. He's got pretty good armor. The poise system still exists. It just feels like it was deleted because of how much extra poise damage they added to all the weapons, especially those first hits. And I'm able to just punish him over and over with a little Warped Axe. I'm doing upwards of 500 damage per hit with a relatively fast weapon, even if the range is short. It's kind of gross. I don't know if he's Source Seal gaming or what's going on, but the game feels revitalized. It is certainly rejuvenated. I was having so much fun playing with all the weapons. I probably only got through half of the weapon classes I wanted to try out and about half of the Ashes of War on just this one build. So don't you fret, I have another video in the works. I'm probably a third of the way done with that one, and I will have more weapons to show off. If you're curious to know how the Barbaric Roar hits so hard, it's because I've got the Highland Axe on my hip for the Roar bonus. I'm using Barbaric Roar on the axe itself, and then I think I have the Axe Talisman and the Roar Medallion for 2 of my talisman slots, which it's just buff stacking at that point, and then you can eat like an Exalted Flesh or something to give you a little extra oomph. And so if you can catch somebody with that Barbaric Roar charged heavy attack, you will mince people. Even the uncharged is pretty darn good. Heck, these regular attacks are just chunking this poor fellow. He didn't have the most vigor, but it still hit real hard. Kind of insane. And, I want to talk about the patch notes. I want to talk about what's on screen. I want to talk about it all, and I can't. Not feasibly, but I will talk about this next part. Storm Assault. Was I a dummy here? Absolutely. I wasn't even a smart player. But look at that insane damage. 1100 damage on the first plunge. And then I'm able to heal up, and despite me not thinking straight, the bloodlust in my eyes, because there's so many Ashes of War that are startlingly good. Stormhawk Axe is also really good. It stuns on first hit. You're probably wondering, but it didn't stun you there. That's because I have hyper armor on a halberd. My Ash of War has hyper armor, which helps me not get stunned so much. And I'm able to dish out crazy damage. Had I worked out my spacing here, I believe I would have won this invasion very well. And spoilers, I don't make it because of gravity. Watch this. Oh, there I go. Had I worked on my spacing a little more, I probably would have been just fine. But still, one kill after another with barely any respite. Let's look at the patch notes. And don't you fret, it's not very long at all. First line reads, increased poise when attacking with some skills, spells, incantations, and some types of weapons that generate poise. And yeah, that's true. They did up the poise damage on all the weapons, most of the skills, and a couple of the spells and incantations. But they neglected to mention that even though there was a general poise damage increase, that the bulk of that increase applies to the first hit of any given weapon. And it's, of course, better off if you're two-handing the weapon in most situations. There are exceptions, of course. Line number 2, added damage reduction when performing attacks with some skills, spells, and incantations, and some types of weapon attacks that generates poise. And so what's that referring to? Hyper armor, baby. Depending on your weapon, if you're wielding something about the size of a greatsword or larger, you probably have hyper armor on your attacks. which changes the dynamic so very much. You can trade with people as long as you're in the middle of your attack animation, and there's little to no chance that you'll get interrupted unless the weapon is much bigger. It feels like things that are around the weight of a straight sword are doing damage type 1. It seems that things in the ballpark of a great sword or the other great weapons are in damage category 2, and then colossals, of course, have damage category 3, and there's people who have done much better explanation than I could ever hope to do. But look at the insanity of this damage here. My goodness, I love how well-rounded this build is. And Storm Assault feels like, well, it's a more aggressive Storm Stomp. It feels like it comes with less risk. You can chain it into itself pretty well, and people don't know what to do with it yet. I think people will become wise to it in the future, so it's going to be a fleeting gem of an Ash of War. It feels a smidge dirty, but not too dirty, because we're in this weird era where they've buffed seemingly everything, and as a result, where everything is buffed and strong, more choices are viable. There will just be other choices that are significantly more viable, and it's going to be very interesting to watch all of that play out. Another thing they've added, they have extended the angle on critical hits. Critical hits being those set animations where you parry somebody and stab them in the chest, where you break something's posture and you guard break right there. See, the angle at which you get backstabs as well, it's been increased. I don't know what the angle is right now, but it's a little more generous and it feels a little more like Dark Souls 3. Another drop in the bucket when it comes to the whole heap of evidence we have for this game feeling and acting far more like Dark Souls 3. Which I'm not upset about. I really liked Dark Souls 3. I liked the fast-paced combat. It was the Souls game that captured my love and imagination. It was the first one I really got into, and I would say it was my starter one, even though I played previous ones before that to no great extent. They have decreased the invulnerability window of Quick Step and Bloodhound Step, those skills, right? So I think what it is now is Quick Step has now 9 frames of invincibility, and Bloodhound Step has 10 frames of invincibility. So across the patches they have given it diminishing returns, they have shortened the distance it travels, and they have now finally decreased the amount of time for which you are invulnerable. I haven't played with it, I don't know how good it is. I guess to put that in context, I should mention that a regular roll has 13 iframes, so I don't know what the numbers were exactly before, but the fact that Bloodhound Step and regular Quick Step have fewer iframes than a roll makes me happy. That's probably how it should be. It should be a distance-getting tool, not necessarily an iframe tool. What else is there? They decrease the damage reduction granted by some skills, incantations, and items. By this, they're referring to all of those tasty incantations that would give you elemental resistances. All of them were tanked significantly, except for, I believe, Black Flame Protection. Black Flame Protection was the big incantation that gave you a lot of physical damage negation. They only reduced it by 2%, which makes me think they pressed a number wrong somewhere. Like they intended to do 20% and they dropped the 0 by mistake. And let's see. And those were all the PvP exclusive balance adjustments that I was just reading off there. For general balance adjustments, they increased critical hit damage across the board. Critical hits are terrifying now. And since they made backstabs easier to get in PvP, it's even scarier, right? They decrease the recovery time after missing a critical hit. So if you've ever gone for a backstab and they get away, that attack you do, it doesn't take as long. So you can get away and hopefully not have them just do a quick pivot loop and get you in a backstab, which was very common. And they also increased the poise damage of attacks that occur after missing a critical hit. So in your attempt to backstab, if you happen to catch somebody anyways with the hit, even though you don't lock onto their back for the animation, it'll do increased poise damage. So kind of neat. Maybe it'll stumble them. Maybe that's the hope, is that it'll kind of be a nice little jab for you. There were some general bug fixes, right? They supposedly fixed aim punch, was another thing that they referenced. Aim punch being any time that usually happened with colossal weapons, where you would try to swing at somebody, something pretty heavy would hit you but not stop your attack, but it would cause the hitbox to go skiwampus, and your attack would usually miss entirely, and it felt very bad. and given how slow colossal weapons were, it felt a little unfair to those boys. They fixed a bug that prevented some spells and incantations from causing damage while under the effects of some other skills and items. I'm not familiar with all those. I don't know which ones they tinkered with. All the ones that I knew about have been fixed in patches before, so let's move forward. They fixed a bug that caused the effects of Sacred Order, the skill, to continue after switching weapons. And Sacred Order was a skill that would buff your weapon with holy damage. And you could swap weapons, and the glowing effect would linger, and the damage effect would linger as well. And then lastly, they corrected some text in certain languages. All in all, great patch. I love it. Will it need some tinkering and some hot fixes? Probably. But at the moment, it's lots of fun. It has ignited everyone's imaginations and captured their attentions, and people who didn't like Elden Ring PvP but were Souls fans in general have come back to the game. There's so many players online right now. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of hard to find people to invade even during peak hours because it feels like so many people are back to invade. You're having a little bit harder time finding people to invade. Is it too hard? It's not that bad. But look at this combination. Halberd main hand, curved sword offhand. Oh, it's so oppressive. Because a curved sword one-handed light attack from neutral, that'll stun a fool. That'll stun a full bull goat. 133 poise. The subsequent attacks, not so much. But hey, it's a great change. I'm all for it. It means I have to relearn so very much. But I appreciate the journey. I'll have another video coming out soon. I thank you for joining me. I hope the fights on screen were entertaining, and I hope you got to see how crazy some of them new Ashes of War are. They're not new, but they feel new. Like Black Flame Tornado stumbling at the first tick of damage. Oh, that's a little gross. That's a little obscene. That's a little raunchy. You can't show kids that. It's nasty. Anyway, thank you, and have a good day. Bye-bye.